And welcome to the stream. Let's see if we got everything situated here, and then we'll get rocking and rolling, no doubt. Looks like we are good to go. So cool. Hello and welcome to my stream. My name is Aaron Mashbitz. If this is your first time watching one of my streams, I am the host of the Something for Everybody podcast, and the majority of the stuff that I talk about is mindset, mental health, and personal development. And I do a lot of reactions on this channel or on this stream, on these types of streams. I also release podcast episodes all the time, again, about mindset, mental health, and personal development. But just started doing these streams because I really enjoy them, and it also helps me learn in real time with you guys. So I'm going to be watching for the very first time the very popular, almost 1 million, over 1 million views conversation between Tony Robbins and Alex Hormozi. I've seen some snippets online about this conversation and how eye-opening it was for some people, and how Tony Robbins, tried to change the way Alex Hormozi thinks about business and life and happiness and joy. And so I've seen a couple of those snippets, but haven't watched the full conversation. So hopefully together in real time, I can give you my analysis, my reaction, and I can learn something in real time with you guys as we go through this conversation. So if you enjoy the stream, please do like it, subscribe, follow, share, anything like that, or definitely check out my podcast called Something for Everybody. But let's just jump right in and see what this conversation has to offer.
You get to interview Tony Robbins. And so I figured I could either make this a headline-driven algorithm podcast or just spend an hour and a half asking the questions that mattered most to me. So I did the second one. Enjoy. Tony Robbins, strategist to some of the most important people in the world, people that you have seen publicly and probably many more that you haven't seen privately that have impacted your life. And he's both a wealth strategist, but also a life strategist. And so we're talking politicians, royal families, US presidents, Margaret Thatcher, Princess Diana, Andre Agassi, Mike Tyson, just the greats. And he's also published books. He's got 100 plus companies in his portfolio that do north of $7+ billion a year. And as impressive as that is,
it's actually 12 billion now.
12 billion. There you go. I was going to say, I was like, I hope this number isn't wrong. I looked all over the internet.
I don't know about you, but that sort of just initial introduction from Alex Hormozi, he seems a bit nervous, which is totally cool. It could be very nerve-wracking to interview or speak to someone that you admire. Obviously, if you know Alex Hormozi, he's very money-driven. That's like kind of the most important thing in his life. At least that's what he shows publicly. And I know he really has a beautiful relationship with his wife, and that's super important to him as well. But publicly, his conversations and his insights and his content is really about mindset and the mindset you need to make money and make more sales and all those types of things. And so I'm sure he looks up to and admires Tony Robbins. And so it makes sense why initially, as this conversation rolls on, he would be sort of a little bit nervous. Seems that way. Maybe he isn't, maybe he is, but it just seems that way, especially during this introduction, which I do a podcast and I can't stand when they do the introduction sort of live in front of the person. It seems weird. I think you should just kind of get into the conversation. And then as you get into the conversation, things start coming out, and things that you do come out, and the way you approach things come out, and you just sort of organically talk about those types of things. But, Hormozi chose to introduce Tony Robbins this way, and his $14 billion portfolio, and the slide he has in his like underground bunker in his house. It's like pretty wild, but that's initially just what I see from the start of this chat, but we're only a minute and 4 seconds in. So yeah.
Most importantly, at least for me personally, is that you wrote books that changed my life directly.
Wow.
And in a couple cool ways. So the first is there was an Indian guy who came here to the US 20 something years ago, and he was working as a janitor. And he had such a thick accent that they said, you're never going to get employed anywhere. You have to learn how to speak. And he tried to get, how to get rid of an Indian accent tapes, and those didn't really exist. And so they were like, well, you can check out these from the public library. And it was Tony Robbins tapes. And so he would just mop the floors listening to Awake the Giant Within.
Yes.
Awake the Sleeper Chief. Sorry, I'm messing up.
Personal Power
yeah,
Probably, yeah.
Thank you. Yes. And so he's mopping the floors and he's doing it. And that man then started a software company, scaled that, sold it, started another company, sold that for $3.4 billion, did another company, took that from 200 to 1.2 billion. And I met him right around that time, and he's my partner at acquisition.com.
Wow.
And so
beautiful.
That's the first impact.
What's his name?
Sharon Srivatsan.
Please give him my best. That's awesome.
I will.
That's a fucking cool story though. Like, that's a fucking cool story. So I'm glad you shared that. That's a cool story.
Would be
like an
here if you didn't
incredible
have
human
to.
being.
Oh, he's the man. The second direct impact is that there was a girl in Michigan who was 100 pounds overweight, had just been arrested 6 times just in the first couple of years of college, and then was like, I need to change my life, and started listening to your tapes and reading your books, lost 100 pounds, competed in a fitness competition, and then got into business, built a whole roster of clients for herself, and that's when I met my wife.
Oh, well, that makes me the most happy.
Yeah, the one that most significantly impacts.
Well, that's the most important person in your life, of course. That's wonderful.
And then the third was me, obviously. And my actually entry into your world was Money Master the Game. That was the book that got me. And so for that reason, I want to say thank you for just everything you do.
Well, thank you for all the kind words. I really appreciate it.
I actually had like 5 words written down for this whole podcast.
Okay.
And I tried to compress a bunch of questions into just the most succinct thing that was actually top of mind for me, that I know will be top of mind for many of the business owners in my audience. So I have probably 60% business owner audience. A third of them are doing over $1 million a year. We also have people who are just getting started, but a lot of people are predominantly business.
There's my brothers and sisters out there. Yours and mine, right?
In the game.
In the game. Same game. Bet on yourself and grow, right? Find a way to give.
Yes. And so the first one was, how do you see the dichotomy between duty and enjoyment as it relates to the impact that you want to make with the business that you have?
Imagine being able to build an app with your name on it just by thinking about it. Meet Base 44.
Well, it's interesting. Words are tricky. They can produce emotions, and sometimes we pick up words because the people are around.
Sure.
I used to play poker with a group of guys when I was in like 19, 20, 21, and they were older than I was, and they were all married except one. And I was surprised to see one day, well, one of them guys, I knew he loved his wife so much. Well, 2 of the other guys always were talking about their wives, like, I had to go back to the old ball and chain, And one day, and I couldn't help see it. It was like I was a witness of it because I was always sensitive to this. And the guy that really loves his wife, out of habit of being around other guys, I'm going on my own ball and chain, right? And the language we use produces emotion. And sometimes we can pick up words and actually pick up emotions.
Yeah.
Well, no, it's just like, if somebody yawns, you yawn too, or somebody starts to laugh, you do it, but words are even more powerful. So duty could be a good word, like if you're seeing yourself like a soldier, right? But I don't look at it that way.
I don't know where the ball and chain story went. I guess it's like because the guy I see was hanging around said ball and chain, so he said ball and chain. I don't like that phrasing. I don't think you should talk about your wife like that. And I don't think people that actually enjoy their marriage and love their wife and do things in that nature say that about them. And so again, Tony's right? The words and the people you surround yourself with have a huge impact. That's why there's a thing called social contagion, right? It could be in a good way or in a negative way. So who you surround yourself with has a deep impact on your life, and you want to curate that to the best of your ability. There are going to be people you work with or maybe in your family that you maybe have to see, but it goes to the podcasts you listen to the social media you consume, to the people you talk to and have conversations with. Those types of things curate your life, and they either drive you forward or they can potentially drive you down. So I guess that's where Tony was going with this, but now he's going on a more duty topic. So let's see.
Look at it as
obligation?
No, I don't look at obligation as saying the same thing.
Yeah.
No, it's okay. But I say this because I saw this in some of your language, and I don't know if this is helpful to you. I don't pretend to coach you in any way, but for me at least, I can tell you, I look at it as opportunity. I don't feel a sense of duty. I feel a sense of joy in being able to contribute. To me, contribution is what we're made for. Like, it's not hard to meet your own needs as a human being, right? It's not that difficult today in the world we're in today. But to have a fulfilling life, you have to have something you care about more than yourself. And so if you get into business just to make money, and there's nothing wrong with that, those people usually, even if they succeed, they hit a limit of fulfillment because the economic returns only produce so much. So I don't look at duty and enjoyment. I look at it as more like it's all enjoyment, because contribution is the ultimate enjoyment for me. I mean, I get into business for impact, and economics are second. If I have enough impact, you'll never have to worry about economics in your life. And I found that to be true in my own life. So I don't look at it quite that way. I look at it also, though, that if you think you're going to really enjoy your life and not do anything, I think you're deluded, because you'll wake up one day, because the only thing that makes us feel alive is growth. When you grow, then you have something to give. And when you give, then your life is more meaningful than just, pleasure. You can give yourself pleasure by, money, food, alcohol, sex, whatever it is, but it's never going to be the same as when you have something that's larger than you that you're called to. So like, I hate the word motivation because I've never been a motivator, but people use the word. So I'll say, well, there's two types of motivation. If you don't think of it that way, there's push motivation.
Let's pause there before Tony goes into this motivation talk that he's going to give about two kinds of different motivation, which can be seen as intrinsic or extrinsic motivation. I think Tony talks about it in a different way, but I talk about this in the sports world with some of the athletes that I work with. It's like, you have to love what you do. Will you love every part of what you do? Absolutely not. Do you think every single athlete on the planet loves waking up at 5 a.m. to an empty gym, working out after a couple hours of sleep, or, not going out with friends to sacrifice this time and that time and this time? No, they're on a grind. They're working hard. They're obsessed with their craft. But at the same time, they thoroughly enjoy doing what they do, which is actually being able to perform on the field, the court, wherever. And so there has to be an intrinsic sense of enjoyment. I just love doing this thing. Like, I'm a podcaster, right? And maybe my podcast never makes money ever in my whole life, but I still enjoy having the conversation because that's the fruitful, fulfilling part of it all. And so if you're only driven by outcomes, yes, you might be able to get amazing outcomes, win the World Series, have $1 billion, whatever it is. But will the journey be fulfilling? Do we have anyone to share it with when you reach the top of the mountain? Do you love the actual grind? Are you kind of just forcing yourself to do this because you think that's what you're supposed to do, and you're trading for what you want, which is whatever the outcome, for what you actually want, which is happiness or joy or fulfillment? And I think that's important. Yes, you want to love what you do. You're not going to love every part of it. That's impossible. Life is hard. It has challenges. But do you love the essence of what you do? Do you love the essence of who you're becoming when you do that thing? Those are important questions, not just like, I need this outcome. I need to make $1 billion. You don't need anything. There's certain things in life that you must have to be able to survive. But then what can you do on top of that to be of service to humanity? How can you leave the world a little bit better than you found it? And, Tony talks a lot about himself and the things he does, which is fine. But he is right in a sense of like, if you lead with impact and you lead with service, generally the returns are great on that investment. So let's hear him talk about motivation now.
Which is, let's say, duty, or I've got to do this, or I have to do, or obligation, right? Or just, I'm going to make this happen. And look, brother, you have a huge amount of willpower. It's pretty obvious by what you've accomplished. I have tremendous respect for you. And I do too. But willpower only goes so far. That's push. Pull motivation is where there's something out there that you want to serve more than yourself, that'll get you up early, keep you up late. And it isn't hard. It isn't duty. It is like what I'm made for. When you tap into that, your energy level will explode. Your contribution will explode. It doesn't mean overnight everything is going to work your way. Of course it doesn't work that way. But it'll give you the constant endurance to move forward in a way in which you enjoy your life, rather than someday when I get to this number, then I'm slowly going to feel good. Because it's not true. You get to the number, and if it's numbers, it'll never be enough. Right? As you know that. You've done incredibly well. I have so many friends that they got their business, they sold it, they made $1.2 billion, whatever it is, and they, 5 months later, they're looking to get back in business again because so many of their needs were met by the demands and the challenges and the growing. I think the biggest problem we have as human beings is that we think we shouldn't have any. It's like problems make you grow. Problems call to you because, listen, you lift, we're both in good shape. You wouldn't be there if you lifted light weights and did 100 curls with some lightweight, right? You're built. You built this body. You built it by challenging it. But some people, maybe because of your background in the fitness industry, no pain, no gain. But today
I think there is a misconception around happiness, that a happy life is a problem-free life. And that just is not the way. A sort of happy life comes with challenges that you are able to overcome, that you're able to see yourself growing, that you're able to see yourself becoming the best version of yourself through those challenges, while being driven by something that's bigger than you, while being driven by a why. Maybe that's being a husband or being a father, or being an important part of your community, or a religious leader, or someone who wants to grow a business, right? Whatever that why might be, it has to be sort of bigger than yourself. When you think about a massive transformative purpose, it's not just only me centered, it's the world centered, it's service centered, right? And that's really where happiness comes from, of being of service to other people. Well, of course, fundamentally, right, taking care of oneself, eating, moving, sleeping, and thinking well, of course, because you can't pour from an empty cup. It's a cliche, but it's a cliche for a reason. And then building and growing that sense of community and duty and leadership, and being of service from that place, not this place of forcing it potentially.
No, that's not true. You know, that we know today that minimum dose will produce the maximum result. If you overdo it, you tear down too much, right? It's like finding the right dose, just like anything else, like a drug for somebody. And so I really think if you think you're going to just go off and enjoy your life and not add value, you're going to be deluded. You're going to be frustrated. I mean, how many people do you know that were rich and famous and the world loved and they killed themselves?
Yeah.
Because they stopped growing. I give this to half dozen people I've thought of in the last 10 years that have done that process. So I think to me, it's not duty, but I do believe.
Well, I just want to mention there that suicide that he just briefly touched on is way more complicated than the simplified version he just gave. And I want people to be aware of that. There's a lot of factors that go into one person potentially ending their life. And it's not just the one thing that Tony said. It's a whole mixture of things that potentially lead a person to make that decision. So just want to make that clear as we move on.
Those much is given, much is expected.
It's one of my favorite words in the whole Bible. Yeah.
Oh, really? I come from that place too, but to me, the expectation is a pleasure. I think the language we use trains our brain. It's like if you said to me, if I said to you during the break here, let's have some nutritious snacks. I said that to a mass audience, maybe for you to respond positively because you're fit, but most people are like, but if I say delicious snacks, they're interested. Or someone says to me, Tony, you meet so many people. You know, hook me up, introduce me to a great guy, a great woman. And if I said to them, well, I know this guy or I know this woman, they're really nice, you know, right? Versus, you know, they're sensual, they're sexy, they're amazing, they're delicious. Whatever they say, right? You know, it's a different piece.
They're not nutritious people.
So they're not nutritious.
Dude, always nice is the code word for not very attractive, but a good person. No, maybe that's not true, but that's just how me and the boys used to talk about it back in the day. Anyways.
But you see what I mean? The words change your biochemistry. The words you attach to an experience become your experience. If you over and over use certain words, you won't even know it, and you'll train yourself to have certain, what I call an emotional home. Certain emotions you go back to because the language takes you there. And duty and responsibility, if you're trained like a soldier, that might work. If you've trained yourself that no pain, no gain, that might work. But how old do you know, may I ask?
36.
Okay. At 36 years old, you built such a foundation of business, of contribution, of wealth, of your body, that at this stage, it shouldn't be pain. It shouldn't be suffering. I don't think it has to be any of those things. I think it can be total joy, but you have to kind of rewire your brain because otherwise that past training conditions you, in my opinion.
The issue.
Does that make any sense?
Yes. And I will just speak for me.
Yes.
The issue that I have is that I got here from push and anger, for sure.
Yes, yeah.
But I think in the last however many years,
before Alex talks about himself personally, you find this in a lot of great athletes, which is, you know, the majority of people that I study. And I think that can be translated to sort of any domain of life where people are trying to excel. Most great athletes are running away from something rather than running towards something. They're running away from the person that said they couldn't be shit, or they're running away from the child that didn't give them what they needed. They're running away from something to prove someone wrong because they have that chip on their shoulder, and that chip on their shoulder is motivating through anger and pushing and all that stuff. And it gets them to a really, 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 really high place. But then you realize at some point when you find someone who talks to you and tells you that there might be a different way, you can potentially switch towards the part where you're running towards something. You're being pulled towards something that's better. That's what Tony talked about, push and pull, right? We're running away from something. So that's anger that's driving us, or the chip on our shoulder, or that, you know, that pride that's pushing us forward, right? Or we're running towards something that we certainly love. And the same intensity and energy can be used on both, but one is like healthier fuel than the other. And generally we do start with that sort of running away from something, and it gets us going. It's activation energy, but there should be, or there can be, a time in your life where you switch it and you're running towards something. Right. For me now, my motivation is simple. It's you know, building my family. It's my wife. It's my son. Right. That motivation is beautiful. It's not hard. It's not it's like, this is what I want to do because I'm being in service not only to my wife and to my son, but anyone who, you know, follows or finds value in the things that I share. And so that's the switch that's made. And it's what Dr. Jordan Peterson talks about, of like bearing that responsibility. You don't really become a man who's responsible until you become a father. And maybe not a father is for everyone. Sure, I'm not going to push that on everyone, but it's certainly how my life changed in the best way possible.
I genuinely believe that's not as much a part of me. Maybe there's elements of that are still there, but like it's not the core drive anymore.
Sure, me too.
The difficulty that I have is like, I work the hours that I'm awake pretty much.
Yeah.
And the difficulty that I have is finding enjoyment outside of work. And the contribution from that perspective, like I've spoken to a number of billionaires, yourself included, where I'm like, the next game, right? And so the game that we're in right now, I know, obviously there's gonna be risks, there's gonna be lots of things that we're gonna do, but I feel like I have a direction of what I know what we're doing. And when I talk to some of the billionaires that are in more private equity, financial engineering, commodities trading, different than maybe what, obviously what you do and to a degree what I do.
I'm actually in that business too.
Yeah. They were like, you should do something that like really helps people. And I was like, I feel like I do that. There's, only 0.1% of the people who see any of the content, the courses, the books, whatever that we put out, I monetize in any way. And to a degree, I also reject the idea that charity must be something that does harm to you in order for it to be virtuous, right? So that is probably a struggle that I have dealt with, which is that I have an apathy issue.
I think Alex helps a ton of people, and he's absolutely right. The majority of his content, which is very, very valuable in terms of business orientation and some of his mindset stuff, is very valuable, and he gives it mostly away for free. And so that is being in service to other people. But is there something else that's motivating him? I'm not sure. And I think that's what he needs to figure out intrinsically, what else can be a motivator. But I do think Alex is being of service to other people. But as he just stated, right, he was very, very motivated by sort of pushing himself in anger, and he works a lot. And he stated many, many, many times, Alex has, especially on, Chris Williamson's podcast, Modern Wisdom, that he enjoys working. He does find fulfillment in that. And so that's a beautiful thing for him. But I do think he's being of service with the amount of value he provides, and probably the lives that he's changed based on people taking his principles and making money from that and changing their lives and their families' lives. I mean, that's a big deal.
I'll tell you a microcosm of this is when I got in the fitness industry, I got into it because fitness was the only thing I was really into. And so I was like, well, I'll do something I love, because I was a management consultant. I was like, well, this sucks. I'm gonna do something I love. And then as soon as I got into the business of fitness, I realized that the vast majority of my day had nothing to do with fitness at all. And it was like billing and membership sales and like all this other stuff. And when I started getting the testimonials coming in of these people who were going through our process, losing weight, getting off medications, whatever, maybe the first couple of months it felt like something. But then on like the 100th and the 1000th, I was like, well, yeah, of course you stopped, you moved better, and you stopped eating shit, and it worked out. Like it's not, basically the magic was gone for me. And so to the same degree, I would say it has occurred within what I do today, but I don't even feel in some ways that I am driven. I do this because I don't know what else to do. It's like, this is the only thing I'm good at. And so I do what I've been rewarded for doing. The biggest thing selfishly that I was like really, or I am, looking forward to, is I'm trying to navigate that.
I understand. So it's almost, you got a set point on your fulfillment, and you're not going beyond it.
Yes. When I was 20, I got obsessed with positive psychology. I had a trunk of books, and every single one of them was self-help, things like this early on before I had a business.
I mean, that's a very interesting point that Alex made, that he kind of does this now because he doesn't know or potentially think that he's good or can be good at anything else. And that's a really vulnerable point that I don't want to skip out on. A lot of people do that. A lot of athletes have that sort of identity crisis. Well, what happens when I leave this sport? What else am I? I mean, there's that famous scene from Friday Night Lights, the movie with Billy Bob Thornton, where Boobie Miles, I think tears his ACL, and he cries in the car, I think with his grandpa, like he has nothing else. Football was his way out, and now he has a torn ACL. And that's sort of a microcosm of what Alex is talking about as a 36-year-old man who's married and has a ton of money. He's like, I don't know what else I could possibly be good at. And so I think Alex needs to get really concrete on the values that he represents, and where can he apply those values into other domains, or try new things, or, whatever the case may be. But a lot of very, very, very highly successful, motivated, obsessed people feel that way about their passion because they've done so well in it. They don't know where to branch out to, because they don't know what else they could be good at, because it's scary. And this is what's gotten them so far. And I think if you watch that scene from Friday Night Lights with Boobie Miles, you're going to understand exactly, what this is about.
Any of that stuff. And I got to a point where I realized I had read all the books and my life hadn't changed. And it felt very hopeless for me because my subjective well-being was the same. And so I came up with a mantra for myself, which you might laugh at, which was fuck happiness. Because I felt so rejected by the notion, because I felt so unattainable for me. And so what I replaced it with was, I will be useful.
That's great. A meaningful life is a very useful life, right?
And that's basically what I've oriented my entire life around, was like, that's why duty for me feels meaningful, because it's like, well, I might not enjoy this whole ride, but like everyone else can get stuff out of it. And so that's the struggle that I have, because like I'm okay with that.
You're okay with it, but you're torn by it, my friend.
Yes. No, agreed.
That's
Agreed.
obvious, right?
I will accept that.
I understand you'll accept that.
Yes.
But would you accept anything else?
I like this Alex Hormozi, man. This guy's being honest and vulnerable and open. It's a very cool side of him. And Tony's like seeing into his soul. I think this was Alex's plan, because normally the conversations he have are all like tactics and business and tweets he put out and all these types of things. And he gets real concrete about the details and how he thinks about things. And he hasn't gone into this specific side of himself about how he's torn. And I love the word useful. I think that's one of the most important words in the world for men specifically. Men, myself included, want and need to feel useful. But that usefulness and that appreciation for our usefulness can potentially lead to more happiness and more fulfillment, because that's the duty that we represent. And so, yeah, as Tony is saying, right, words are power.
In your other businesses, would you accept something that's mediocre compared to what you're capable of?
Of course, yeah.
Okay, so I'll give you my 2 cents, which is all it's worth.
Yeah.
Unless you stay emotionally, so the guys, the astronauts, I got to interview several of them, right? Think of them. They went out and they competed. They wanted to be an astronaut, right? You had a version of that. I want to be a business owner, whatever it was you had, right? And they beat everybody, right? Tens of thousands of people. They got down to 100, down to 25, down to 6, down to the guys that go to the moon, right? And they get a rocket that's built by the cheapest bidder brought together on their back, and they shot them out into the moon with technology that's far less than what's on your phone right now. And they walk on the moon, they look back and see that image. You and I have seen it. They took blue-green of the Earth, but that was them seeing it. And they make it back and survive. They splash down. They have a ticker tape parade. They shake the president's hand. Now, what the fuck do you do after you've walked on the moon for adventure?
Yeah, right.
I guess like you're 35 and you walked on the moon. What do you do? And most of them became alcoholics and drug addicted. And the reason is they forgot how to find that joy or that adventure in a smile. And so you have trained yourself to be.
I mean, I laughed because like, it's like, what the fuck do? You just walked on the fucking moon. What do I do? What else compares to that? But that's why like, your whole life potentially leading up to that or after that is like finding the simple joys in the mundane, in the cup of coffee, in the smile, in the conversation, right? In the movie that you watch with your wife or whatever the case may be. And then those extra big moments feel even more special because you had people and joy along the way to get you there. But that's hard, man. That's hard when you have one specific fucking goal. I'm going to be on the moon. I'm going to be a professional athlete, right? I'm going to have a successful podcast, like one specific fucking goal, and you get there and you sort of ignored everything else along the way. What do you do? So it's like the really, really, really challenging part about trying to become successful, whatever that word means for you. And it's like really important to have open and honest conversations about it. But then for like, most of us, we're not even near sort of the level of money and stature as Tony and Alex. So also advice would be to like follow people or subscribe to channels or podcasters that are just a couple steps ahead of you, who are routinely talking about the place that they just left, which is probably the place that you're in, not the place they were in 10, 15, 20 years ago, where they don't really understand the struggle of having to grind for 12, 14, 15, 16 hours a day because they don't have the luxury of a team or employees or anything like that. But then you learn this stuff along the way and you tweak and you change and you grow. Now you have people to delegate tasks to. You can do less and focus on more and like spend more time with this and that. But it's like a very complicated, there's no balance along the way in your journey. There's maybe some harmony that you can create. There's pockets of your life that you can sort of change, and like energy, work, and love, and try to, do those 3 parts really, really well. Focus on your energy, right? Eating, moving, sleeping, thinking, be in deep work, and then be in deep love when you're in those specific places. But it's very, very challenging. It's never going to be easy. And like, there's never going to be one simple, all right, here's the plan. This is what you do. And you're going to be fucking fulfilled. This is not how it works.
Pain equals success, and success has a certain amount of value, but fuck happiness. You have literally hypnotized yourself into missing it because you weren't feeling fulfilled. So the idea that these people keep telling you, I would tell you is true. And I'll just give my own experience. We're not the same person, but maybe it'll be instructive. I don't know. So I don't know, maybe 10 years, I found myself in a place where it's like, I love my life. I couldn't be more fulfilled than this. I have the most incredible wife. I have the most incredible kids. I want to be an athlete and make it. Right behind you, I have like 6 national championship rings from different teams that I own or that I help to coach and turn around. I'm working with the greatest athletes in the world, the greatest business people in the world. I'm having fun. I've got homes all over the world. There's nothing what else could make me fulfilled? I mean, this is it. I can't be any more. I'm not complaining. Yeah. But then there's some part of me like you that was hungry for more still. You wouldn't be asking me that question unless there was part of you that wants a hunger for something called happiness or wants something besides just duty, or you wouldn't ask me. Mm-hmm. So, and I'm not telling you I have the answer, but I'll tell you what it was for me. It's like the same these people told you is me. I've always was contributing the same as you. I've been doing it since very little. Yeah. But I started saying, you know what I'm going to do? I want to do some moonshots in that area. I know how to scale businesses. I've grown businesses from nothing up to 12 billion. It's like in those days, it was like 4 billion. Like, what would really get me going? And at that point, I'd been feeding people since I was a kid. When I was 11 years old, we had no food on Thanksgiving. Somebody came, delivered food, changed my life. It made me believe strangers care. So I cared about strangers. And I started 2 families, 4 families. I got to 1 million, 4 million. So about this point, I've been feeding people for 37 years. So I called my foundation, how many people have I fed in my lifetime? And they said 42 million. I was like, wow, that's pretty awesome. But I had no association to it. Yeah. I felt good about it, but I was doing it, all these different ways. I was like, there's so much pain out there. Yeah. I'm going to feed 1 billion people in the next 10 years. It took 37 years to do 42 billion. I started out by saying, well, what if I did as many people I've done in my lifetime in the next 10 years? What if I did as many people in a lifetime in 1 year? And then I was like, what if we did 100 million people in a year? What if we did 100 million people a year for 10 years and fed 1 billion meals right here in the United States?
I'm gonna be honest, I don't really know how him talking about how many people he's fed has anything to do with the conversation. He just likes to interject that, which I find kind of annoying and not very productive to the conversation. But I've listened to a couple Tony Robbins podcasts, not a ton, don't watch his content a ton, but he always has to interject these types of things. Like even at the beginning, right? Hormozi says like he's invested in companies that are worth 9 billion. And Tony's like, no, it's actually 14 billion. Like, why the fuck does that matter, mate? Like, and I'm not sure where he's going with this. Hopefully he lands the plane and there's an actual point to it all, or he just wants to fucking talk about this. I mean, it's amazing. It's amazing. Like, no shade, obviously. Please feed as many people as humanly possible. There's so much suffering in the world. There's obviously a ton of people who are very, 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 very hungry. And I'm glad he's feeding them. But I just don't get the sort of point of why he's saying it. Hopefully he lands the plane and there's something concrete we can take away from it.
And I got so ignited by that, Alex, that it was more than, it wasn't money, it wasn't business, it wasn't success, it wasn't, okay, there's a system. It was like, I have to rip apart. If it took me 37 years to do 42 million, to go to 1 billion is going to require me to think differently, come up with strategy different, be different, and to think of 1 billion lives. That number somehow brought a different level of life. It's kind of like Kennedy saying, we're going to go in this decade and we're going to land on the moon and bring a man back to the earth. And all the guys at NASA are like, bullshit, right? This is not going to happen, right? We don't have technology to do it. I don't care. This is what we're going to do. There's something about building a moonshot for contribution on outside even what you've done in business. And I did it. I said I'd do it in 10 years. I did it in 8 years. So then I finished that and was like, I'm traveling around the world. You see people starving. It's just trying to do what you're going to do. It's like, no, I need something bigger. So I was in the UAE and I had a lunch with MBZ, is the head of the country, brilliant man. And he calls me the next day and goes, I want to have lunch with you again. I'm like, that's cool. I'm not going to do that, right? So I come sit down with him and he goes, I brought you lunch today because there's 2 people feeding the most people on earth and they should know each other. So he introduced me to Governor Beasley, who ran the World Food Program for the UN, right? So I said, well, I think he's doing more than me, he said. And so we talked. He later won the Nobel Prize, but we stayed in relationship. And because of our relationship, he got so frustrated with the bureaucracy of the UN that one day he said, Tony, I'm going to leave the UN, because during his 5 years, we went from 80 million people at the verge of starvation to 385 million people. I mean, just think of those numbers. You have to think of them if you just think of as numbers, it doesn't, but if you follow like one child starving, it'll change that system to something more ethereal. It's like watching a movie. Watch a movie about war, it's too much. You follow one person and what they go through, you feel it. So I got associated with that and I said to him, what if we create a strike force team? If you're going to leave, how many meals would it take to feed everybody in the world for 10 years that need it, where it would give us time to build a sustainable solution? Because you can't keep doing the same crap, right? And he goes, Tony, I don't know, 40, 50, 60 billion meals? I said, let's do a 100 billion meal challenge. I said, I did 1 billion meals. When I started, I wasn't a billionaire. I've been blessed, obviously, since that time. You do great work. If you bless others, you'll be blessed, right? I wasn't doing it for that reason. It just came about. So I said, so people ask me all the time, life is so uncertain right now, the waves of life, the storms.
Thanks, Tony.
Well, there's got to be 90 and more guys like me right, in the world. There's 3,000 billionaires or owners of companies or, countries that'll do this. So we did this 100 billion meal challenge, and we went to Forbes 400. And I thought, we're going to get 50 of these guys, right? The richest people in the world. 4 people stood up. 4. I'm like, this is not working. We got to do something different. But I won't bore you with all the details. The strategy, the thought process, and what kept me going, though, is it's not just having this unreasonable goal. It's having strong enough emotional reasons. And I got in these environments where people are starving. I got in the Sudan. There were 1 million people cut off by the rebels there. And they were starving them out. This is just this last year. And the UN sent all these food people in, and they killed the drivers and took the food. MBS, not MBZ, MBS from Saudi Arabia, cares deeply. He tried to provide things. They killed everybody. So people stopped giving money. People are going to starve. So I said, no, there's something different. I said, I'm just putting a line in the sand. We are going to feed these people. I'm going to provide enough food for 1 million people in a week. Who will match me? And I got Ray Dalio to match me. Pretty soon I had $40 million. But how are you going to do it? And this is where it gets so alive. It's like no one else in the world's done it. We're going to do this. Here's what I'm going to do. I'm going to hire I'm going to find some military contractors. We're going to take C-130s and we're going to take drones and we're going to deliver the food to the people. We delivered 22,000 meals that month and saved all these people starving to death. So when you do that, your level of fulfillment explodes. What the fuck compared to running a business? Right. It's not even the same. And so I've been hooked on that. So now we got 62 billion meals in 3 years, which is beyond anybody ever thought was humanly possible. And then, so now I said, we're going to do a song with We Are the World. And I got Jimmy Jam, the most successful Grammy guy. And I got everybody you can imagine in the music business all building it together. We just completed our first version of that. And then, I'm lucky enough, like you, I'm very blessed. So I have a private plane. I have a 737. It burns a lot of carbon. I want to be conscious. How many trees does that burn? It's 3,000 trees a year. I'm like, I'll plant 100 million trees, but not just plant the trees. I'm going to plant 100 million trees. And I'm going to work with the farmers. I'm going to show them how to go from making $1 a day to $12 a day by having 12. And I work with a group to do that. It's like, a friend of mine's daughter was kidnapped and put into slavery, just insanity. It happens in America, it happens overseas, and nobody wants to talk about trafficking. But that got me associated to it. We actually helped somebody. And so I went out undercover. I had markings all over my face. They had a makeup person. They had scars on my face. I helped them negotiate these deals with these animals that do this. It's the ugliest thing I've ever seen in my life, but also the most beautiful. But again, I didn't just give money. I didn't just write something. I just didn't put something. I went in the fucking trenches, and I'm sitting there watching these girls go through the worst thing on earth, meaning they're chained to a bed to do 8 or 10 tricks a day. And then we get them freed. We run them to this house. They've never been out there. They're out on the ocean. They're down here playing basketball. They're like the change in their lives. And so then I'm hooked. So my wife and I have now funded 72,000, started with 30,000. As many, I grew up in a town of 30,000 people. I want to free that many children, as big as the city I grew up in. Now we're at 72,000. I'm going tonight. We'll probably raise $5 million tonight. I'll do matching funds for everybody at the event to do it. So what I'm trying to say to you is, get off your ass. And I love you and I respect you, Alex. I'm not coming from that place. I hope you know where I'm coming from. You've accomplished more than most people dream in their lifetime, and I respect that. But when I say get off your emotional ass, stop this fuck happiness shit. And just actually say to yourself, no, I deserve happiness. I'm going to create happiness, but I have to do it differently than I've done it before. I can't just get up and just work because I'm trained to work. I'm not a fucking robot anymore. Right? You're way too smart and you got way too big a heart. I know you do. I know everybody knows you well. I've seen you with your wife. You're an extraordinary human being. You're not just the guy here who does all these wonderful things, and they do wonderful things for people. You're absolutely right. But you're not connected to it, and you don't have something that you're obsessed about that makes you feel fully alive. You're doing it because you need to. The difference between have to, duty, and get to, that's the difference between rich and poor. And rich and poor is not money, right? Rich and poor is feeling fully alive. That's rich, right? Poor is you work your ass off and you have plenty of money and you help all kinds of people, but you don't connect it. And again, I'm not making a judgment. I hope you can feel my heart. It's just, I want more for you. And I knew you wouldn't ask me the damn question. That's true. So it's like, but you need, like, your energy has got to be shifted. You need a kick in the ass. You need to get an environment where you're on fucking fire. And then at that state, you've had that state before, I guarantee you, when you got here. But then you got so caught up in the push. I think you've missed some of the pull for your life. And I think this is not just true of you, it's true of most of us. Why are most people stressed? Like if you talk to people, like so successful people, they're
Let's pause right there for a second. So he's sort of ish landed the plane. I like to think of this as like your massive transformative purpose, not just your purpose, but something that's massive and transformative. I think your MTP or your massive transformative purpose is something that you actually don't even accomplish in your life. So for me, my massive transformative purpose is to end mental suffering in all regards, with athletes, with my nonprofit, with my podcast, all this type of stuff. Now, in my life, will mental suffering end? Most likely not. But that's not a goal that I can reach. And so what are the small daily targets and actions that I can do every day that keep me fulfilled and moving in that direction, that allow me to move in a service-driven, purpose-driven way? That's what fuels me and fires me. So Alex, again, is motivated by this need to do something that he thinks is the only thing that he's good at. And again, Tony talked about how many people he feeds and all this type of stuff. And the human trafficking element is fucking disgusting, and way more work needs to be done on that regard. And there's also an issue with OnlyFans and sort of the celebration of that, and the objectification and the easy access and all these types of things that, again, make probably sex trafficking more and more likely to happen. But that's not the conversation. Anyways, more needs to be done about that. But the conversation is about what is your MTP that probably you won't even accomplish in your life. But when you lay your head down for the very last time and you take your very last breath, you can say you actually contributed to moving the needle forward. And now someone else can take the mantle of continuing to move it forward, because you made such a large impact that now people see it's possible to actually do that thing. And I think Tony has done that. He went on a long-winded sort of I've done all this stuff type of rant to get there. But I do think that Alex needs something like that. Maybe it's him becoming a father. I don't know if him becoming a father is in the cards, or that's something they want for his wife and him. I have no idea. I'm not going to put that on them, but that gives me a sense of responsibility that's more important than anything else, and along with my MTP, or massive transformative purpose. And I think how I see it and how I hear it from Tony is that's how I feel it, and that's how it resonates with me.
always talking about, I'm so stressed, I'm stressed.
Yeah.
I'll tell you why you're stressed, because you're managing shit.
Yeah.
You know, like you're managing all these great businesses, you're managing all this great money, but you know what? When you manage it puts you back in survival. Are you going to tell me it's more stressful today than the dark ages? I mean, come on. But what's happened is we have all this we're trying to manage, and we're not made to manage. You've been so successful that now you've hit a set point. And now the only way that set point is, people get to a point where they question and they start going, is it worth it or not? But I have to keep doing it. Yeah. No, sometimes you make a point, you say, no, I'm going to keep doing what I'm doing, but I'm going to be connected to it at a different level, or I'm going to change paths altogether, or I'm going to add a path that brings another dimension to me. Those are the places that go. So I'm pretty passionate about this answer, because primarily because you're asking me, because you're asking a question. It's a very sophisticated question. Most people never ask because they never get to where you are, right? So you've gotten to a place where you've hit a block, but you're only 37. Yeah. You're, God willing, you're going to have 50 or 60 more years of your life. I don't want you going around doing it out of duty. I want you going around doing it because I have to get up and work. I want you to do it for something else. And so I can't do it for you, but it'd be very useful for you to get an environment. I'm not selling you, but like, there's nothing like being in an environment. I know when Pat Riley came to one of our events, and, I got 15,000, 20,000 people, and he's like, I don't need this stuff. And, then after an hour, he's like, this is insane. And at the end of the night, he said to me, he goes, this is like the 7th game of the NBA championship, only lasts 12 hours and it goes for 4 days, right? But without energy enhancement, the brain takes over. All of a sudden, now it's your mind doing it. The reason you're not happy is the mind is leading you. Get in your head, you're dead. Your heart is so big. And I'm not saying that to placate you, because I know we have mutual friends and they all rave about what a generous, incredible guy you are. But I don't see you feeling the level that you have. And I can see part of it is energy. You can execute with your mind so well. You recognize, I'm sure, like I do, pattern systems. You know how to put them in place, get it done. But then there's not the emotional connection. You need a moonshot or two, and you need to get connected to the people and see and feel the impact in a new variety, because otherwise it's the law of familiarity. You get around anything enough, no matter how good it is, you start taking a little bit.
Yeah, I mean, Alex has said a bunch of times that he wants to be a billionaire. And that's not, I mean, that's cool, I guess, if that's your vibe. But that's not like something that will really keep you fulfilled for a very long time. Like, it's Elon Musk fulfilled. He just keeps taking more and more money and wants to buy more and more things and has kids he doesn't even take care of. It's like, is that sort of the paragon of virtue that we want to aspire to be? No, probably not. I aspire to be the best husband and dad I can possibly fucking be. That's the only thing I have aspirationally, and then everything business wise just comes because of that fulfilled, meaningful place. And I think Tony's spot on here. Now, it took him a sort of a weird route to get here. You wanted to talk about, how virtuous he is in those ways, and great. I'm glad there's people like Tony out there, and it's cool that he talks about it, I guess. But he's right on that, where Alex needs something like that, not just like, I want to make $1 billion. Like, why? What's the intrinsic reason? What's fulfilling you? What's driving you? What's motivating you? What's leaning you in this direction? What's actually going to light your soul on fire? What are these reflection questions that you can ask yourself pertaining to your own personal life that would allow you to do great things and be of service to humanity?
For granted. And that's just human nature. That's not you. So you have to wake it up, and you got to get associated. The other thing is, you don't have a kid, do you?
No.
I'm trying to give you advice, but look, I have 5 kids and 5 grandkids. I adopted 3 kids. I was 24. I married a woman who was 12 years my senior. She married twice before me with kids from each person. I didn't recognize the pattern, but it was one of the best things that happened in my life, even though she wasn't right for me. And I don't think I was right for her, but I made that choice. I ended up with these kids. So I was 24 and had a 17-year-old son instantly, an 11-year-old, a 5-year-old, and the one on the way. I've been doing my thing, like you're doing, very successful. I want to change the world. Now I got to figure out all these kids in different stages of life. And so I tell you that because that marriage wasn't the right marriage, but those kids are now, my youngest kid is like 42, right? I have a 52-year-old daughter, and thanks to COVID, I have a 4.5-year-old daughter. COVID was good to me. I never thought at 65 years old I'd have a 4.5-year-old daughter, right? Are you kidding me? I've already done all that. But it's the greatest joy of my life because she makes me see the adventure in the smile. I want to do more for her than I want to do for everything else. Every day is new because everything is new for her. You just need some new elements. Yeah. So it doesn't have to be a child, but I wouldn't mind recommending the possibility for you and your lady. I don't know how she feels about it, but I think at some point
Yes, have a kid. My son is 4 months old, and he's sleeping right now upstairs, and it's fucking amazing. The best. It's like, oh man. Oh, it's like, holy shit. You can't even explain it. You can't even explain it.
Life, there has to be something more than you that calls you. I'm not trying to give you a sermon. I'm just so passionate. I have a love for you because you've delivered so much value, and I hate when I see someone with so much value. And to me, I see this as a little bit of suffering. You wouldn't call it that, but there's a conflict inside. I don't want to see you suffer. You're too good a human being. I don't want to see anybody suffer, much less you.
I appreciate that.
Does any of that make any sense to you? What part makes sense to you? I'm curious.
So there's 3 things. So one was the emotional connection part. The second was the framing of the opportunity. And then the third was around suffering. And so I want to touch on each of those.
Okay, great.
So from the suffering perspective, I find that really interesting because passion comes from the Latin passio, right?
Yes.
Which means suffering or to endure.
Yeah, I know.
And so that made actually a tremendous amount of sense for me. And so I actually reframed that whole concept as like, find a goal worth suffering for. And so I've been very accepting of my suffering. And to your point, I actually don't have a lot of anxiety. That's actually not the issue that I deal with. I deal with the other opposite, the opposite extreme of not giving a fuck.
Yeah.
Is it worth it? Who cares? Why bother? Whatever. Yeah. So that was on the suffering piece.
But before you do it, can I give feedback?
Please,
if I may. Again, I'm not pretending to have the answer for you, but I'm just giving my 2 cents because you're asking me, right? Because I want to see more of that smile that I see in you right now. Okay,
I'm wide open.
This is the real you right here, by the way. But what happened is you're so in your head. Yeah. So even think of what you did, like a goal worth suffering for. Fuck that. I mean, I don't have goals that I'm worth suffering for. No, don't get me wrong. Every day is not like pure bliss. Yeah. And there's lots of things that I don't love to do that I need to do to succeed, or I got to deal.
I don't know, man. It's like Tony Robbins is at such a higher stage than his companies are worth $14 billion. He's at such a higher stage than everyone else that if you're trying to make it to a certain point, there is going to be a sense of suffering. Now, if you take the Alex Hormozi approach, which I like in certain regards, is it's a voluntary sense of suffering, not an involuntary sense. There's going to be uncontrollable and horrible things that happen, and that's sort of a different conversation. But there is a sense of sacrifice and suffering you have to endure to reach a certain level or goal or target. Like I see this in the athlete space all the time. There is a certain level of that. You have to get in the gym. You have to do lonely work. You have to work out and eat right and have the right coaching staff and work with no reward, and all these types of things have to happen. So there is a goal that should be potentially worth suffering for. And I think that's the wrong advice from Tony because he's so far ahead right? But what if you're just starting out? You are going to have to do things that you don't like. You are going to have to be in the trenches, and no one's going to watch your shit, or no one's going to, accept your pitch, or whatever the case may be. And so I do like that framework of a goal worth suffering for. But then when you get to a point like Alex and then Tony, right, then there has to be a switch. Why? Why does there need to be suffering in that regard? Unless you're doing it voluntarily to do hard things, to challenge yourself, like the sauna, or working out, or, climbing a fucking mountain, or whatever the case may be. But there has to be a sense at the beginning, like, this is the target that I'm moving in the direction towards. I know there's going to be a bunch of obstacles along the way. And so I'm willing to endure those obstacles to try and reach my target. Anyways, here we go.
Well, that's part of life, but pain is part of life. Suffering's an option. You've heard that phrase, but it's a fact. It's not just a phrase. That's why you've heard that shit some more. But when you make it your goal to find a goal worth suffering for, you're going to suffer, right? And so it's in your language.
I think there's different versions of suffering, right? I agree in that regard, like, the thing he just said about pain and suffering, but I think there's different versions of suffering, right? We don't want to voluntarily, like, do horrible things to ourselves, but we do want to voluntarily put ourselves in hard, uncomfortable spots that are going to allow us to grow into the person we need to become, so we can reach the target we want to hit. And so, pain is going to happen. People are going to die. You're going to have setbacks. All these types of things are true. But what sort of armor from the chosen suffering that you've had, right? There's unchosen suffering, and then we have the chosen suffering. I think those are distinctions that need to be made in terms of what are you going to choose to suffer through, not in like a horrible way, right? But like, things have to be done, and you have to make these sort of sacrifices, and you have to pay the price to reach a certain level. And what are the unchosen sufferings that we can sort of armor ourselves for when they do come along? We lose a parent, someone dies, our business fails, right? We get divorced, right? Whatever you have a miscarriage. I don't know, all these sorts of things that do happen in life as well.
Wish. And you got your wish. And what's happened is this part of you is so strong, brother. This part of you is too, but this is the lead right now. Sure. If you change the lead to here by that sense of connection and everything else, and get the hell out of your head, because your brain is always going to reduce things. It's like your brain will never make you happy. That's the problem. It won't even allow you to enjoy an apple. You go, is it organic? It's like your brain is analyzing so much. You got so stuck up here that you're missing this magnificent human being that I see in front of me here. You're missing to have the joy of him. So stop this getting over suffering for.
Can I ask a question on that?
Yes, of course.
So with the, like, get out of your head, get into your heart.
Yes.
I love the language. I don't understand what it means.
I know, because right now you're in your head still.
Sure.
Because by the way, we laugh like this. What, can you feel the difference? Like this guy right here is smiling at me right now. Is that a different guy?
Yes.
Okay, so so let's do this.
Okay.
I have multiple parts of me. Mm-hmm. Most of us in life try to pretend we're one thing. Society makes you try to pretend you're one thing. I'm sure your wife has multiple personalities. My wife sure does. When I first met her, I'd have a conversation and she'd be talking about, I'd be like, who is this person over here, right? I had to come up with different names. And by the way, look at the smile on your face, you know exactly what I'm talking about. Heart. But I started naming the parts of my wife, so I knew who I was talking with, right? There's Bonnie Pearl, there's Sage, there's some names I can't tell you.
I don't want to dismiss that comment that Alex just made. He just pointed at his wife and said, that's my heart. That's beautiful. I mean, that's the Alex Hormozi right there. Sam Harris, I don't know if you listened or watched Sam Harris, but he made a recent comment on one of his podcasts saying, like, the first time he had his wife on his show was like the first time that his audience had seen him smile. Because when he's doing his podcast, Sam Harris is talking about very, very, very serious stuff. Very serious stuff. So what's he going to smile for? And then he has his wife on, and it's his audience told him, like, wow, we've never seen Sam smile. We didn't know he could do that. And then someone asked him a question recently about, what would people, your audience, not recognize you about, like, how you are a dad? And he's like, well, I'm the silly dad. And it's like, yeah, there's going to be different parts of you that you explore and express in different ways, especially behind closed doors, because usually we only get sort of one version of you that's public facing on your social media. And Alex talks about business content. And so he's a business oriented guy. But of course, I'm sure when he's with his wife, you can see a little bit on his Instagram stories, if you followed him recently, that he shares some of those sort of just normal everyday moments that he has with his wife, and that point and say, that's my heart right there. It's a sort of a beautiful reminder that we don't ever see the sort of the full picture of someone on social. And I think Tony's trying to get more out of that of Alex, but maybe he doesn't want to put that on a public platform. But maybe also if he switched to that side of him, he would be more fulfilled in his work if he had more joy in it. I don't know, but I think that's also an important piece there.
Is this Friday night, Layla, or is this Tuesday morning, Layla? Yeah.
But the point of the matter is, we as humans try to reduce ourselves for simplicity's sake, and society does, to one thing: it's easier to manage, right?
Mm-hmm.
There are many parts of you.
Yeah.
So what's the part of this guy that's so intellectual that, you know, he's going to suffer and he's going to, you know, he's going to get it done anyway? It's not this guy right here. This guy like this guy here. This guy's is this guy different?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
So you just shifted just like that, right? So who's the guy who's in his head all the time and is analyzing? Oh, he's brilliant, by the way. He's absolutely effing brilliant. And he can succeed in anything if that's that. What's that guy's name? Give me a nickname for that guy. One that maybe will make you laugh.
There you go.
What's that?
Imagine your best employee is stuck doing admin tasks, paperwork, answering phone.
I love how
Analytical
the
Alex.
Analytical.
I love how the ads of the video are one of Tony and then one of Alex. That's great.
What?
Analytical Alex.
Okay, analytical Alex. Okay, perfect.
Yeah.
Okay, who's this guy who was just laughing with me, looked over his wife, big smile on his face. Your smile is infectious, right? You know, and this is you, right?
Yeah.
Okay, so who is this guy?
Anabolic Alex.
Anabolic Alex. So anabolic Alex has so much life in him. Can you feel it?
Yeah.
Okay, so you what happens is, think about a relationship. I'll try it that way. Most people get in a relationship and I always tell people, the secret to relationship, 80% of having a great lasting relationship or intimate relationship is selection. And people will say to me, well, shit, why didn't you tell me that before I was married for 10 years or something? I said, no. I don't mean who you select, who you select to be in this relationship. So when you're in the beginning of a relationship, what do most people do in the very beginning of a relationship? What will they do for the other person?
Their best behavior, all that kind of stuff.
Anything. Lighting them up lights you up. There's no transaction value. You're not trying to see what you can get. Like, your joy is making joy for them, right? Yeah. And you give your all. You dress properly. You do all the, well, whatever properly. Yeah. But you get the idea. You give your best foot forward. Then people get married sometimes, and after a certain number of years, they forget and they bring a different person to the table who's always analyzing. Like, what did you do versus what I do? And they're measuring. That's a transaction. No one wants to be part of a transaction in an intimate relationship. And when you ever do a transaction, it's not fair anyway, because in a relationship, it's like a team sport. You're climbing a mountain. Who's leading and who's following changes as you're climbing. If you're climbing a big mountain, right? And you can't lead the whole damn time. You'd love to, but you can't. You got to switch off, right, to make things work. So it's like, which part of you select to do business with? Which part of you is going to run your business? And so many of your viewers, I see people different than you. They'll be like, oh, I know I need to fire this person. I need to let go of this, or I got to do this.
Just on the marriage front, it's like, one of the best pieces of advice that we got, my wife and I, before we got married, was like, you want to date your partner forever. And I think also what's rewarded is repeated, and also the vows and the values that you commit to when you choose your partner, right? My wife and I value and vow to take care of each other and take care of ourselves. So we're always growing and evolving together. And so we're fit and healthy. And those are priorities that we live by in our house, each of us. And the goal is to try and continue to date each other forever, even though we've been married now for a year and we have a kid and all these types of things. But that makes sure that we're still always using the action of love to continue to fall in love with each other, not just relying on that we love each other, because that's going to fade and go away sometimes, and especially when you have kids and other priorities and things like that. But if you continue to try and date one another, there is a sense of always having the action of love that I think is quite important.
But I just can't hurt them. I was in that stage at one stage of my own life. If you put that person in charge of your business, you're going to fail. Yeah, right. Right? Because you're going to be taking care of this person and hurting your platinum players, right? You're hurting your clients, right? So it's like, we all have to pick the person we're going to be and be conscious of that. And in your case, my friend, it's not so you can succeed, because this will make you succeed. I have a strong one here too. But if I let this thing take over, I would be bored shitless. I'd be like, okay, I got 5 sports teams, and I got $1 billion, and I got this business, that business, and everybody tells me every day I'm the greatest thing in their life, and I changed their life, and I got 5 kids, and like, where's the meaning of my life? Yeah, that's what the brain does, because the brain reduces everything and compares it, whereas the heart magnifies everything. It takes the little things that makes them bigger. What made you attracted to your wife when you first met her? By the way, who's this guy right here? Anabolic Alex. Right?
The honest truth was that I once I met her, I didn't want to not be with her.
Yes. Why? What qualities about her did you not want to be without?
I think she let me be me.
Yeah, she loved you for being you.
Yeah, she just never tried to change me, and I think that was what was so unique.
That's quite miraculous. I'm fortunate to have the same thing. I found that Sage loved me not because I was Tony Robbins. She just loved me. I never experienced that before, right? So, and what else about her besides the fact that she loved you unconditionally?
She also loved the same stuff that I loved.
Yes.
And so when we talked, we just wouldn't stop. And I feel like it has been one very long conversation. We spent two weekends apart since the day we met.
Wow, that's beautiful.
Like not in literally the same place.
Does she bring out analytical Alex or anabolic Alex?
We work together, so she sees both sides.
I'm not asking that. I'm saying, which one can she bring out if she wants?
She can bring out whoever she wants.
That's right. That's her power, right? Yeah. But who does she want more?
Oh, she for sure wants anabolic.
Yes, of course. Because look at this man before me. Like you're a different man right now when we started here, right? Can you feel that?
Yeah.
I didn't do shit. This is you. But if you don't identify, like, think about it. The strongest force in the human personality for any human being, you, me, doesn't matter. The strongest force is that we need to stay consistent with the way we identify ourselves, right? Identity is the controlling force of human being. If you are of identity that says, I always find the way to victory, you will find the victory. If you're Lance Armstrong and they say, oh, by the way, you have cancer in your brain, in your lungs, and in your testicles, which is inconvenient since you ride a bike, right? What does he say? He says, I will find a way. What do some people say? Their belief is, I'm at the effect of things. Life controls me. What makes people, by the way, miserable is when they feel events control them.
Now, I just want to touch on identity real quick. Like, I think of identity as your repeated beingness. So your identity is not attached to your job or some outcomes or some sort of a role that you have, but your identity is your repeated beingness. So who you being on a consistent basis, which means what values are you representing consistently, right? Consistency, zest, resilience, hope, kindness, honesty. That is your true identity because that's your repeated beingness, and you can bring those values in any domain that you enter. So it's not really your job title, but it's the core values that you represent. That's your true identity. And if we can think about it like that, then we don't get stuck and we don't foreclose ourselves on one specific thing.
Versus they control events. And all it is a shift in here and here, right? So Lance had that belief system and he found the way and lived strong.
Yeah.
But he also said, I'm going to find a way to win using drugs that were illegal, right? And so it cost him his reputation, but he won all these things, right? So your identity is everything. And so you have to be careful because very often in life, we identify to who we were a while ago. Like if I asked someone in an event to do something, they go, I'm not that kind of person. Well, when did you decide what kind of person you were? 5 years ago, 10 years ago, 20 years ago, 30 years ago? Would you use a phone from 10 years ago? You'd be an idiot. Why would you use the same old identity? I'm not saying get rid of it. I'm saying let's expand it. And in you.
Also, if you're interested, I just recently released a full about 20-minute podcast episode, solo podcast episode about how to construct your new self-image. There's 6 steps that I go over to sort of rewire your brain to construct your new self-image. Because your old self-image or the self-image you have now was learned through behaviors and stories and narratives. So what's stopping you? Maybe you don't have the tools. Well, I give you the tools, 6 steps to rewrite your narrative and your story to create a new self-image. So if you're interested in that, you can text me at my number, which is 201-534-3681, and say you came from this stream, and I'll send you that exact podcast episode link.
I don't have to teach you shit. You've done everything you do. But what I can offer you is a conscious choice to find anabolic Alex. Look, you've already mentioned it there, and put him in charge. Your level of happiness go, and then stop your hypnosis. You hypnotize yourself a long time. It's time to transcend. Transcend means end the trance. Whatever you say to yourself over and over again, people, you tell a lie big enough, loud enough, long enough, sooner or later people believe you. You've told yourself a lie, fuck happiness. No, fuck suffering. That you gotta be your new one, fuck suffering. Like, I wanna engage enjoyment. It's not my duty, it's my gift. It's my honor, it's my opportunity. It's grace that has put me in this point of my life. Think of all the other people you've met. You and I both have busted our ass. We wouldn't be here without. But we've also had grace in our life. Your woman is grace in your life. My woman is grace in my life. I always say, listen, I got my wife because of karma. I have helped tens of millions of people worldwide, and that was my reward right there, right? And that makes me smile like you're smiling right now because I really believe it's true. So it's like, those little shifts, they said, I teach something called transformational vocabulary. It's one of the simplest things in the world. I was in a meeting when I was probably younger than you. I was probably 32. And I was two other partners who were very wealthy, super successful, one worth $1 billion, another one very, very close to it, but very different personalities. And three of us were partners in a certain deal. And I won't bore you with the details, but I'll give you the core. The core was, we went in negotiation, and I'm an open book, as you can probably tell. I don't claim to be right about everything, but I'm going to share what I believe, right? Certain areas I know, just like you know, right? Because of my life experience. But in negotiation, for me, I was like, F negotiation. Let's just put our cards on the table. I want to be able to do business with somebody who's honest. I'm going to tell you the whole thing. Let's do something fair, right? But you know, if you go to certain people, if they don't fight for it, they feel like they don't want to do business, right? They want to feel like they beat you, right? So I go on this negotiation, and without telling my partners, I opened the door and I told them the good, the bad, and the ugly. And I said, I think this is a deal that would work. I want a deal that's more than happy for you, because I'm the kind of guy that I'll do a deal. And then afterwards, I give a person a little bit back, even if they agreed to it. That's how I got partners for 20 or 30 years, because I'm generous, right? So I'm trying to be generous. But if you're trying to be generous with a shark, he'll take your arm, right? So I'm this 32-year-old kid. I'm not realizing you're much more sophisticated at your age than I was at mine. And so I tell the guys all this stuff, thinking, okay, let's come together. Everyone perfect, but let's pull together. Long term, who cares? As long as we respect each other, love each other, we're going to crush this opportunity, right? And the other side, without giving you all the gory details, takes it, uses it, and tries to manipulate us with leverage to make a deal that was far worse than we should be in. So I'm effing pissed. I am angry as hell. I'm pissed off. I'm frustrated. One of my partners goes apeshit. He's like, I'm furious. He said, I'm enraged. I kill these MFers. And he was so intense that even though I was pissed off, I was like, hey, it's not that bad, right? I'm trying to calm him down. While I'm trying to calm him down, and notice my other partner, he's not even moved by this thing. Like, he doesn't seem even slightly upset, which almost upset me. Don't you get it? He's too crazy in my mind. He's not feeling enough. So I said to him, like, aren't you upset? He goes, yeah, aren't you furious? I'm like, calm down. He goes, yeah, I'm a little annoyed. At first when he said, I'm a little annoyed. I said, annoyed? Like, the word annoyed me, right? Don't you understand? That's what they did. He's like, don't you understand? I'm like, calming him down. In the middle of it all, I couldn't help. I'm a student of behavior, right? So I couldn't help but notice all three of us have had the same problem delivered to us, and all three of us have radically different emotional responses. Okay, why? And I'm listening, and he's going, I'm enraged, I'm furious, I'll kill the MFers. And I'm thinking, I am so pissed off, I'm pissed as hell, I'm angry. And then I'm hearing him say, I'm annoyed. I said, annoyed? I mean, that's it? He goes, well, and then he said, I'm a little tinkled. I said, tinkled? What are you talking about, right? And he's going, so in the middle of all this, I thought for a moment, I couldn't help, but I said, you know what? I don't think I've ever seen you really angry. He said, I don't really get that angry. It's very rare. I said, well, what about, he had this deal with this IRS agent, came to his house. He's a very wealthy guy, right? And the IRS agent, my guess was, threatened by or upset by the level of wealth he had. And so he did some things that he eventually won. It took him 5 years to get his money back. He fought the IRS and won, which is pretty rare. Okay? But during those 5 years, it was brutal, by anybody looking on the outside. I said, you're going to tell me you were annoyed with that? He goes, no, I was peeved. I'm peeved, right? And then I asked him something really interesting. I said, what do you believe about getting angry? And he goes, I believe if you get angry, the other guy wins.
You lose, 100%.
Right? And I'm like, I never thought of it that way. And this other guy believes if you don't get angry, when I get angry, I get powerful. And I thought, when I get angry, I get sharp, right? But I also thought, when I'm really happy, I get sharp. And it changed me. I started saying, okay, I call it transformational vocabulary, because the words you attach to your experience, as I said, become your experience. My mother would call me one time, I'm old enough, probably not old enough, before we had cell phones, we had these little recorder calls, it was like on a reel to reel. And
Anger is very interesting, though. I did have a woman on my podcast recently called Davina, and she's like an anger specialist. And the thing about anger is we're very scared of anger, because we don't know what we're going to do when we get angry. Are we going to punch something? Are we going to throw something? Are we going to explode? But we don't know how to solve anger because we don't understand the root cause of it. And so this woman on my podcast, who is an anger sort of specialist, unlocked 5 key archetypes that underlie our anger. So if we, in the midst of potentially almost getting angry, we understand where that anger is coming from and the archetype that it's addressing, we then have the ability to actually solve that anger in real time rather than just suppressing it, shoving it down, and then exploding later. It's like any emotion, but anger specifically can be quote unquote dangerous. And so it's really about understanding where the root of it is through those archetypes, and then being able to solve that from the root. So yeah, words are power, and they are very transformational.
Called in and got your calls. Well, I went to England and Europe for about, I don't know, 2 weeks, and I gave my staff the time off. They've been working their tail off. So my mom calls every day and leaves a message, doesn't get a call back. And when I called from England, the little beep thing wouldn't translate. So I didn't know it was on there. I didn't know it was upset. I come home, and there are 10 days worth of messages. And every single message she says, I am humiliated. This is humiliating. My son is not the president of the United States. It's the most humiliating experience of my life. And as I'm listening to this going, my mom is always humiliated.
Yeah.
Do you know why? If there's a funnel of experience and it's painful,
Yeah.
he's going annoyed Pete, I'm going pissed off, and he's going, I'm going to kill him, right?
Yeah.
My mom always uses the word for anything uncomfortable for humiliate, so she's always humiliated. So like, I'm never depressed. I was so depressed when I got chased out of my house and I had no money in my background. I lived in this place of depression. And I remember reading this book by Claudine Bristol. It's called The Magic of Believing. And I read the book and it talked about how to condition your mind. And one of the things I did, I wrote on soap on the mirror, I wrote, only a loser is depressed, which isn't true. You can be a winner and be depressed and feel that way. But I knew I wasn't a loser. That was my leverage.
Yeah.
And I literally took the word depression out of my vocabulary. I've never used it again. I felt down. I felt pissed off. I felt frustrated. I felt sad. I felt overwhelmed in moments. But I've never felt depressed, because when I was depressed, I got to the point where I was questioning whether it's worth it all. You know what I mean? And so your words shape your psychology. And so a few word changes, as stupid as that sounds, as overly simplistic as that sounds, or people give metaphors. They'll say, oh man, I'm like, I'm at the end of my rope. And I'll go, well, set it down and come over here. What are you talking about? We hypnotize ourselves, or somebody will say, well, that person stabbed me in the back. And I'll walk up to him and I'll lean them behind the back. I said, I don't see anything. And you know what I mean? No, I don't. Well, they betrayed me. Well, what did they do? And you dig in, they go, they told someone else something they said they wouldn't tell them. Right. But the words escalated the emotion. And once they're there as a metaphor or as words, they control us. I invite every business person to notice this. I remember, I decided to get a divorce when I was 39 years old. And I didn't want a divorce. I had 4 fathers. I was going to stay no matter what, duty, all those things. Things were going for me, right? And then I remember going to my friend Peter Guber, and I was like, I don't know. I can't imagine doing this. And then I said, I'm going to give her more than half, and I want to take care of her. But we're the whole part of starting over again, starting over. And he grabbed me by the arm and he goes, I'm going to teach you what you've taught me for the last 10 years. He goes, you are not starting over. That language is putting you in this place. He said, you couldn't possibly start over. He said, you could take everything from you. No one can take the man you've become, the knowledge you have, the skill you have, the relationships you have, all those things. But starting over was my trance for being in pain. And when I stopped doing that, it's like, no, I'm starting fresh. I know that sounds simplistic, but linguistics change how the brain functions. And so part of yours is some simple linguistics, but the other part is state, because anabolic.
I just want to make a quick note about depression, since Tony mentioned it. And I'm glad he made that distinction of, like, of course, any person, mental health does not discriminate. Mental health is how you think, feel, and act. It impacts every single person on this planet. And no matter who you are, where you come from, or what you do, you can get depressed. But the way you identify with that depression is really important. If you say, I am a depressed person, that is boxing yourself in. If you say, I'm experiencing depression, or I sometimes get depressed, that's a much different set of language about your depression. And also, depression, a serious bout of depression is much different than apathy or sadness or anger or discomfort, right? Depression is very, very serious and very real. In fact, I did a whole podcast episode explaining sort of the truths and the misconceptions surrounding depression, and some of these fucking idiot manosphere guys talking about online about depression. And so if you're interested in that, again, check it out on my podcast called Something for Everybody. But the way we identify with the things that we're going through are very, very, very important. And I just want to make that distinction about depression and apathy and sadness. Those things aren't the same. And depression or mental health disorders can impact anyone, anytime. They don't discriminate. And I think that's very important. But again, on top of that, the language we use to describe our experience is super important.
Alex.
Right.
I gotta understand. Look, he shows up. All we gotta do. So all you gotta do is saying it's time for anabolic Alex here, and then a moonshot that's gonna wake you up and then get emotionally associated. Like go. Like if I just provided all this when I first fed people, I would go there in a t-shirt and jeans, not so they acknowledge me, but so I could see and feel the impact, as opposed to I wrote a check or I did some good work or they did it. The more connected you are, and that once you get in the habit of that, like people say to me all the time, doesn't it get old? People come to you 10, 15 times a day and tell you, changed my life. No, it's one of the things I enjoy most besides my family. But it's because I've trained myself never to take it for granted. Right? Is that helpful at all?
Yes.
Okay.
From the
stay in anabolic Alex when you ask me. Do your best to ask me a question anabolic because you go back to your brain. And so I'm happy you got a very smart brain. We can use him too. But
this is why athletes talk about how important their self-talk is. And this is why a lot of athletes develop a 2-word mantra or an alter ego when they step on the field. The alter ego isn't, some facade, pretend thing. It's a couple words that define exactly who they are when they want to step on the field. For me, when I was playing baseball, it was be resilient and be dominant. That was the sort of the alter ego or the 2-word mantra that I wanted to adopt when I was on the baseball field. And now I've translated out of that, out of the baseball field into like all other areas of my life. But it's okay to have different types of words for different types of situations for who you want to be and become and act like when you get in those certain situations. All right, anabolic Alex, let's see it.
Let's start with anabolic Alex as you ask.
So in order to create the emotional connection, because that is like the thing that I probably have struggled the most from, but I think it's made me disproportionately successful from a business perspective because I can make good calls, right? But, I remember the first time I wrote $1 million check and then multiple $1 million checks to charities, and I was just like, okay, I feel a couple $1 million poor. That's about it.
Because you're not emotionally associated anyway.
Zero. But I did the tours of the school, and I was like, I'm glad that this
you haven't found the thing. Just contribution for contribution is not what I'm talking about.
And this is where I wanted to get. So my last little word of the ones we covered most of them was opportunity.
Yes.
And so I think the question that I have is, you have unlimited opportunities.
Yeah.
More opportunities than you can sink your teeth into.
Yeah.
As an owner of Walton Goggins goggle glasses, I know how to make slick-looking goggle/glasses.
How do you go through opportunity selection and balancing your kind of achievement brain outcomes and your philanthropic impact feeding families outcomes?
I look at opportunities first, a business perspective. I look at opportunities first to see, do I have passion for what it's about? Is it something that I would do for free if I felt it was really successful, that it felt fulfilling, it felt alive, it felt it was worth doing, right? Is there a mission behind it? Is it selling widgets? I have no interest, right? Second thing I look for is, who are the people? I want people I'm gonna enjoy being with. Like, I would enjoy being with you in spite of this conversation sounding like I wouldn't, because I'd bring out more anabolic Alex. I bet your wife brings out more anabolic Alex, right? So I'm trying to make sure if I was doing business with you, I'd make sure this guy was present, right? But I look at the people and I look at their heart and soul, what's driving them, and I also look at their skill, because you need both, right? So if someone's got a track record, and someone's negotiating with me right now on a really large project, and if the project made no money, I would probably do the project as long as I organize it so I can have the kind of reward for my time and my energy, because the project has such reach, global reach, on a very deep level. I'm very connected to it. And this person's built a business and went to $2 billion. So they got a great track record. It's not me carrying it all. But together, 1 + 1 could equal 5, not 2. So a deal like that gets my attention, because most of the money I make, I give away at this stage of my life anyway, right? It's like there's, I'm not hurt for any capital. I know there's no toy that I'm looking for, and it never drove me anyway. So for me, it's like, if it's got enough juice in it here, the people I'm going to enjoy being with, and it's got enough juice in terms of the impact, and then it has track record of the person likely to help get there, so it isn't all my back. The two of us are adding some value together. It's about added value. Then I'm in. And it's like, let's rock this thing. Let's make it happen. Let's have some fun. See, mine is let's have some fun, not let's do the duty, right? That's like, I'm going to learn. We're going to.
No matter what domain you enter in, life is about relationships. That's it. Life is about relationships. So if you can do more cool shit with people that you like, you're going to have a better life. If you can spend more time with people you like and that like you and love you and see you for who you are, and bring out the best in you, you're going to enjoy your life more. Life is about relationships. And no matter what people tell you, nobody does anything great alone. We do it through relationship with ourselves and with others. And the cornerstone of living a great life, a good life, an amazing life is relationships.
Grow, we're going to expand different things, we're going to touch lives, we're going to have these things. So those are my core criteria. And I'm not always right. But one thing I will tell you that I've done in business, because I've made some poor choices in the early days on business partners. You know, everybody's selling when you're going to business partnership, right? And it's like going on a date, you know? So it's like.
It's also like when you're really young and starting out and have no opportunities, you say yes to everything. You say yes to everything because you don't know what's going to bear fruit, what's going to help you learn, what's going to help you grow, what's going to help you this. You just say yes, 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 yes. And you die for sort of any opportunity that might come your way. And then you get to a certain level and the opportunities just flood in. So you have to sort of pick. At that point, you've really got concrete on what's most important. And do you say no to most everything else, but you say yes to the things that actually line up with your core values, your mission statement, your personal philosophy, and your purpose. And it becomes, I think, easier at that point. You say yes to everything, then to a certain point, you start saying no to most things. And then you only say yes to really the things that are absolutely 100% aligned or are with people that you really love and care about.
You can get sold. And the question is not, can they do the job? Will they do the job well long-term? Is the right team fit? Like, they're deeper questions. But I now, when I have so many business deals, the first thing I do early on, I just had this happen recently with somebody's, I own a large power plant, a 1.3 gigawatt power plant. I'm converting it to hydrogen. So it's in West Virginia.
Dean told me about this, yeah.
Yeah, so it's a great project. But I have some people involved that shouldn't have been involved. And so I had some new guys come on board. And what I do now is I go, they sold me. I was actually liking them. I felt the vision was great. They seemed to have the track record. Everything seemed lined up. And I said, look, you know, what I always do in any new partnership is I have everybody check me out legally. I want you to check out everything online, hire a private detective if you want, know everything about me. And you can ask me any question you want. But I want to do the same with you because that's how I know when I'm starting. Now, by the way, though, nothing I hear will I take as true because, you know, it's not true, but I'll bring it to you and we can discuss it. And then you and I can tell, you know, most people have you and I have large bullshit meters, right? We can tell when something's bullshit. Yeah. It's a perfect example. And this guy, we had a deal worth, you know, 10 figures plus, looked really good, ghosted us, ghosted us. Because and then I uncovered 3 or 4 things he'd done that were not great. And I was like, I just saved myself 3 to 5 years of pain. So I do believe in the practical side, but I'm not even interested in going there unless I can first find these pieces and unless I believe already there. But I can get fooled, right? I'm not perfect, right?
So I have one last question for you, which is the most selfish of all my questions. So you're 36 years old. You have built businesses, and the skill set that you are most proud of is that you're good at helping business owners.
Yeah.
The only thing I feel emotional connection to is teaching young men how to provide for themselves and their families. That's the only thing that actually, because I know that pain.
Yes. So you're connected to it.
That's the only thing.
Makes sense.
And to me, I've built a lot of the business and all that stuff basically around that. But I still don't feel like that the massive emotional drive. That being said, what would you have played differently from your 36-year-old self to current that you could kind of pass on to me? Basically, what can I change about my behavior to maximize my enjoyment and size of impact?
You have to make an enjoyment a priority, which you've not. You've always gotten your priorities, brother. You're an overachiever.
Yeah.
But there's 2 skills in life. There's the science of achievement, which you're unbelievably great at, and there's the art of fulfillment, which you're not so great at, by your description.
Yeah.
Right? By the way, notice the language difference. The science of achievement, it's a science. Like you and I both know, if you want to make money, there's a science to it, right? If you want to be fulfilled, though, that's as unique as every human being you're going to meet. And so you haven't found that piece. Now, you gave some clues along the way. Like, why am I so interested in feeding people? Because I'm such a good person? No, because I suffered, right? So I don't want other people to suffer. So I started out of that, but now it's not out of suffering, it's out of joy. You can get started out of the pain, passion does.
Yeah.
But you don't have to stay in the pain, right? You kind of stayed in the pain, even though you've gone past it.
Yeah.
But
I mentioned that earlier with the athlete piece, right? Running away from something and then flipping it to running towards something. And, you know, just to be really charitable to Alex, right? He has helped tons of young men, and young men need that. We need direct. I mean, I'm 33, so I'm not a young man anymore, but I say we as in the collective men who need direction, and we need great role models, and we need people to look up to, and we need something to strive for, and we need targets, and we need to be providers and protectors in a certain dimension of that, is what Alex talks about. And I think he's been very, very influential for the young man space. Like when you have role models, quote unquote, on huge quotation marks for role models here for young men on the internet, like Andrew Tate and Sneeko and like fucking Fuentes and all these fucking idiots who masquerade around as being masculine men, who are just caricatures and pretenders of what real men should be. Then you have people like Alex and Chris Williamson and Scott Galloway and Tim Ferriss and Jocko, who are like real examples of men who are striving to be better and actually be of service to humanity. And I think that's really important that Alex does that. And hopefully he can find more and even more emotional connection to young men so he can help them even more, because young men need our help.
What you just said is, well, a clue for me is that's the one place I can start to get folks associated to, because I know what it takes to do that. And I know what it feels like to be able to take care of my family. I know the contrast, right? So I would take a look at that and expanding it, but I try to find a way to do it where I had a moonshot, something that's like right now you're
a moonshot of that.
What's that?
A moonshot of
exactly.
That. Yeah.
That's what I was saying to you earlier. I'm not saying you should go feed people or writing those checks. The problem is you wrote those checks to things you didn't give a shit about. Right?
1,000. I mean, it's true.
So you felt poor, and then you probably felt bad about yourself for doing it. Because I'm supposed to do good stuff, and why don't I feel good by doing good stuff? Because it's not your passion.
Like a piece of shit. I was like, I selfishly wrote these checks so that I would feel good, and now I don't even feel good, and now I'm just $2 million poorer. They're like, but I shouldn't feel bad about doing good. And then it was just the whole thing.
And by the way,
like,
question: Head or heart was having that discussion.
Sure, head, of course, yeah.
So analytical. But by the way, as you're laughing about it now, who's in charge right now?
Yeah, Annabelle. Yeah.
Right. That little shift, which sounds like nothing. I hope if nothing else, you hear me say you play with that just a little bit in your life and bring him to the table. But if you come up with a moonshot connected to that, like I'm making this a completely wrong thing. I'm going to help 10 million young men who right now think they can't buy a home, they can't do it. Most young people here have been sold this bullshit bill of goods. Inflation's 3%, and I gotta have 24 million to have 4 million, and it's like that's the catastrophizing analytical side. That's assuming that you're not going to have any growth in your assets. And also, when you're 86, which is when that would be 50 years from now, do you really think you're going to spend the same money? What the hell are you going to be buying? You already own multiple homes. You already have those. They've all grown in value. So most young people, they are not involved with free enterprise, as you know, and so that's why they want communism, because they've never been there. I was in USSR when I was 23 years old, and I took a train from Moscow to Siberia with a group of scientists I was brought because of my firewalking, things like that, by their government, and back. I spent 2 weeks there. It made me a capitalist, because every stop we did, there's the same thing in every city. There's a central place where the train stops, and we've been having caviar, and all these Russians are like wealthy on this plane. They're all supposed to be equal. And then you see people literally 3/4 of a mile around multiple times, maybe half a mile around, waiting in the freezing cold for half a loaf of bread and milk, right? It's bullshit. But kids today are thinking, oh, it means free bus, free childcare, free. They don't understand. There's no such thing as no free lunch. What life needs you to do is, if you live in a free enterprise system and you're not an owner, you're going to be in pain. You know that. You've built businesses. I tell kids sometimes, I'm like, here's what you understand. If you put $300 aside while you're still living at home and you're 19, and you only invested and do it all in the S&P 500, you don't know anything about investing, and you stopped investing when you're 27, and you've only put $28,000 in, at 65, you got 1.8 million. God forbid if you keep investing, right? And all the numbers got bigger. You look at people today, they buy.
So close.
It's so easy to become a podcaster with Riverside. You just need a concept and a way to record it. First, go to
I have an iPhone, and they buy a new one every year. They've been going on since 2007. I looked it up just the other day. I actually made a chart to show a kid, and he's telling me about, there's no way you can succeed. And I said, okay, you've had an iPhone since the beginning. There's been 19 years of iPhones, whatever it's been. It's now, he'd spend 20, I took up the exact dollar amounts for each one, and what the stock was at the same day. If you would have bought the stock versus the iPhone, or just matched it. $22,000 you spend over time, which is gone, or $326,000 you would have. And I'm saying 326 will change your life, but for somebody who has nothing, it sure as hell would, right? But the other part for it is helping people understand that It's like, if I get to be an owner, the whole game changes.
Yeah.
Then inflation could be my friend.
Mm-hmm.
I don't have to live in this fear I can't have something. So you could bring that to kids, or whatever age.
Yeah.
You could bring in the biggest, say, I got to come something. I'm going to take 10 million or $1 million or whatever would float your boat. And then when you see those kids and you see scale of that, and you see them taking care of their families, and you hear stories about that, I don't think it'll be old for you. What'd you write the checks for?
Kids after school care.
Okay. And you don't have any kids. So you have no association with that whatsoever. Right. Okay. It's like shit. But and I'm not saying write a check. I'm saying go make this happen. Like go, you've done so much. You need to find something there, but you found the thread.
Yeah.
Dude, Alex, fire me up. Go change the lives of, 100,000, 100,000, 1 million young men, and teach them the ways of not being in a victim mentality. Teach them the ways how to provide and protect and own and grow and build and stuff that every young man needs right now. That sense of direction, that sense of purpose, that sense of I can get this done in this environment through having the right role models, teachers, and tools. Like that would be fucking incredible.
But for me, I wrote, I wrote 4 books on finance. I never expected to do it. You know why I wrote it? Because I got pissed off in 2008. I've coached Paul Tudor Jones for 24 years, one of the greatest financial traders in the history of the world. Every single day, measure what he's doing, coached him through all these pieces. He had the most success in 1987 when the stock market had its biggest percentage drop in history, 20% in a day, and he made 100%. But then it was like the moon. He went to the moon, and then what do you do? And then he broke his leg, and then he dropped. So I had to turn him around. Now, we've been friends. I've worked with him all those years. I learned so much from him. But when we got to 2008, and I don't know if all of your viewers have been around that long, but it was much more brutal in some ways than 2020 and COVID, because COVID, they gave people money. There was no money then, right? And I remember being so angry because I knew a small number of people basically almost destroyed the entire economic system. And then I thought they're going to be punished, and we gave them more money.
Yeah, so that they could have more money they can't use.
That's right, exactly right. So I was incensed. So out of that anger, I said, I don't have all the answers, but I have one thing. I have access. Yeah. So I'm going to interview 50, the book you read, 50 of the smartest individuals on earth who started with nothing. Nobody from the Lucky Sperm Club. They all started from scratch. And I'm going to see, even though they're radically different, what do they have in common? I'm going to write a book that my billionaire clients are going to love, but an average person could do as well. Well, that journey has never stopped. Then I was like, how do I help people accelerate? It's like I look around today and I see so many people that don't feel they have a compelling financial future. And so I started looking around and said,
that's my heart, just so you know.
Pardon me?
That's my heart.
Okay, well, me
Helping
too. So my approach to that, and maybe I'm going to plant a seed with you, because maybe it'd be something when you're teaching people to add. You probably already know this, but you may not know this part. So I'm looking around, and like in the last 39 years, every single stock market in the world, which is where most people put their money besides real estate, right? And if it's their own home, it just barely beats inflation, right? As you well know. Every stock in the world has been beaten by private equity. By average private equity. So I interviewed the top 13 guys in the world, right? Well, the top 13 guys in the world, it's wonderful to interview them, but how are you going to get money in there, right? Because it's like trying to buy an SP3 Ferrari, right? I want to go get one, and they're all pre-sold at $3 million, right? You know, it's like, but if you have one, and if you know the right person, so I got into some of those cool funds, like Vista, Robert Smith he's a genius. He's got $100 billion fund. He's averaged 26% compounded per year for 25 years. It's like, it's unheard of, right? Nobody, but you can't get in, or you might get in. I got in, but I got such a little.
It's like, we'll take $100,000.
$100,000. But okay, so let's look at this. Let's just do this. Try this for the people at home. In the last 39 years, if you put your money in the S&P 500, it's averaged 9%. Okay. So if you put $1 million in there, at the end of this time, you'd have 28.6 million. If it's 100,000, it'd be 2.86 million, right? Yeah. But if you put in average private equity, it's been every stock market in the world, average private equity, not the guys I'm talking about. Yeah. Average private equity is averaged 15.7% per year around the world. 75% higher per year, compounded year after year. Yeah. You put in that same $1 million, instead of 28 million, you have 293 million.
More.
10x. Okay, forget your 3% worries that you're talking about. Screw that shit. Let's take it 100,000. Then you have, instead of 2.8 million, you have 29 million. Right. Same time. Yeah. Passive investor. Yeah. But then the next thing you got to say to me is, Tony, well, yeah, that's great, Tony, but you can't get access. So that's what I believe too. Like I had access, but small access. And then I met a guy who'd been through my business master program for 20 years. He started his business. I was telling my frustration about, I'm only getting these little slivers. They're not enough to change your life, right? I want to get them bigger. And he goes, Tony, I'm going to tell you where I put the majority of my money. This is a very sophisticated investor. And I said, okay, I'm leaning in on this one, right? He goes, there's a company in Houston, Texas. At Houston, Texas, I'm thinking Singapore, London, New York. He goes, off the beaten path that has mastered something unbelievable. He said, you know the difference private equity? I said, of course. He goes, what if instead of buying the fund and fighting to get a small piece, you could own the company that owns all the funds and make the 2 and 20 yourself, side by side with the owners? I said, you could do that? He goes, there's only a few companies in the world that do it. These guys are brilliant to get what they call general partnership say. So you're a limited partner, as you know, if you go in and you got a limited amount, you get in there.
Yeah.
I said, how do you do that? So I went and met with this guy. Turned out he was a graduate of my program, so 20 years ago, started his business with it. It's called CAS. It's Christopher Zook. And I talked to Christopher, and so I put some money in with him. And the next thing I know, I got ownership in Vista. I got a little slice of Vista, right? I'm getting the 2 and 20. So I have 95 of those companies now that I have a piece of. It is nothing but a cash machine beyond our wildest dreams. I get to work with the smartest people in the world. They're working all night, and I'm right beside them earning without working all night on those pieces, right? And now the same thing with sports teams. I worked forever to get my first sports team, the LAFC, and you got to go through they look at a microscope through every part of your body. It's just ridiculous, right? But the rules have changed recently. And now if you have private equity and the owners don't own other sports teams, there's some technicalities with it. There's a small percentage that you can buy. So I own I owned the Dodgers. When I was growing up, I couldn't be in right field. I couldn't afford a ticket, right? The Dodgers, I own the Golden State Warriors. I own the Pittsburgh Penguins. I owned Aston Martin's F1. I own a piece of all these businesses all through our business. Then I became partners with him and grew that business. When I met him, it was 1.8 billion. That was 4 years ago. Now we're at 11 billion just in AUM in that business. So the opportunity to grow is insane. But here's the problem. You had to be an accredited investor, which means you got $1 million net worth, or a qualified purchaser, 5 million. So your young people are going to go, I can't do that. I wrote this book because I found out, and it just passed 3 weeks ago. The House just passed a new rule. Why should the richest people in the world be the only people who get access to the most effective investments? Don't get me wrong. You got to diversify, but you got to have a significant port here if you get this kind of 10 times return. And so they were smart, because like they say, well, you're not sophisticated. Well, some people have $1 million, but they inherited it. They're not sophisticated, or they're a good business person, but they're not a good investor. So a group of people, I was arguing this, and it wasn't me, it finally got resolved. 3 weeks ago, they passed the law. Now the Senate will pick it up in April. And what it says is, you don't have to be a accredited investor to get access anymore. All you got to do is take a test. They're working on what the test is.
That's
you study for the test, and now you can put your money and get the same kind of returns as the richest people in the world. And in my case, you can own a piece of those businesses. So when you're going to show people how to build their own business, the only challenge with their own business is, you and I both know, if there's any law of finance that everybody knows but very few people practice, it's asset allocation, right? You don't put all your eggs in one basket. So most people put all the eggs in their business because they feel more control, and then there's a COVID that happens, right? So you got to be, I always tell people you need two businesses: the one you're in, the one you're building, but also that business plus an investment business where it's growing. So everything happens here, you're taken care of here. And if they both win, you get there faster than you ever dreamed of, but you got to know where to put your assets. And this is just part of that process. So, but for you, it's like, I know what my passion is there. You can feel my passion. I know I'm going to tell everybody about it. It's like, I don't give a shit about making money. And it's like, and of course I make money too. It's like, it's unbelievable. You got to find that with this piece. What do you think it would be? If you had to tell me right now, I'm not talking to your analytical guy. Come back to the analog guy. I saw your eyes go up there. The analog guy, what would he say? I'm going to crush something. It's going to feel so good. I'm going to feel so much joy. I'm going to do X for this many young men. And it's going to be part of who I am and my legacy and what I'm going to live, what I'm going to enjoy, not someday along the way.
Imagine being able to build anything just by thinking about it. Meet Base 44.
To answer the question.
That's a good point, though, that he said, not someday, but along the way. Right? We always think that the destination or the happiness is like the there. But it's every little step along the way that's actually the fulfilling part, right? Humans get happy via progress. So yeah, it's great to have a goal, a North Star, a massive transformative purpose like we talked about before, but really the enjoyment and the fulfillment comes along the way, not someday. So don't trade your potential current happiness for the thing you might want in the future. Try to optimize for it now, potentially if you're in that space of your life. Now, there's different seasons for everything, of course, So think about you specific in your life. But that's an important point that Tony made, like not someday, but along the way. Here we go. About 4 minutes left in this video.
And I think back to what was the big moment for me? Like, what was the moment where like wealth felt achievable?
Yes.
So for me, it was $100,000 in my bank account.
Okay.
That
great.
was the moment. I wrote about it in my book. Layla and I were on the kitchen counter, and I was like, "Look, babe, we actually did it." And
That's awesome.
Years
I
and
remember
years.
that moment too. That's
yeah,
that's a good
and it
number.
was to this day the richest I've ever felt. And I think it's because it's the largest relative change in wealth I've ever experienced. Because you go from $1 to 100,000, you get 100,000x, and you can't 100,000x 100,000 takes a lot longer than
Right.
and that.
And by the way, once you get to 100,000, your brain expands, right?
Yeah, you see what's possible.
It just keeps bigger.
And so I think it was because the first time that I was able to go out of survival, and I remember I looked at Layla and I said, "We can fuck up for 3.5 years." That's what I was like. We can completely screw up.
Overhead at that time.
Right, exactly. 3.5 years, and she's like, "Yeah, this guy's a winner." Really, all 100 grand for the both of us for 3.5 years? Gee golly, this is after she picks me up from jail for getting a DUI. You know what I mean? Just that's why she's my
Oh, that's awesome.
But that moment, then all the other milestones after that was the one. And so I think because that one milestone is huge.
It changes your identity.
Yes, it does. It changes your whole viewpoint of the world. To your point about the capitalism, the capitalist system.
Yeah,
is that that is a big enough change where you believe in capitalism.
That's right.
And I think that is a quantifiable goal that I am personally connected to, that I would love to help deliver.
That's great. I love that. If I can help with it, count on me. I'm in to help you in any way I can. There, I'll give you education material. Anything that you want to add to it, you're welcome to add to. I'll give it for free. But that's exciting. And I love the way you did that. You went back to a moment where you knew what it was for you.
Yeah.
So that's where the passion comes from, right?
Yeah.
And by the way, that wasn't pain.
Yeah.
That passion was an excitement that you felt.
Yeah.
So I know the word passion literally comes from pain. I know that too. Yeah. But sometimes we get caught up on the original definition versus how we can live it, right? But I love this idea. If you did that, how many people, does it matter how many? But one person alone feels amazing when you do that. But is there a number that in your mind would say this would be insanely fun, insanely great?
I think I would look at the generation. So it'd be how many men are in Gen Z?
Perfect.
And then I'm that sounds like a good starting point.
But what would be, well, that's a lot of kids. What's the first target though? Because it's
I'd have
it's like I do the billion, then I went to the 100 billion, right? You want an unreasonable goal, but you need a timeline. So what would be our 36-month goal or 24-month goal? That would be unreasonable, but would get you up early and keep you up late.
100,000 men at 100,000 is $1 billion in actual bank account wealth. And that sounds like a nice round number.
Yeah. Like a nice round number. Help 100,000 men
get 100,000.
Get 100,000.
Yeah.
And feel the way you felt on that day.
Yeah.
That's nice. And then the second lesson you can teach them along the way is how to keep enjoying it, my friend.
Yeah. So Tony, you have an event coming up. Do you want to tell everyone about it?
Yeah, it's called the Time to Rise Summit. It started when COVID happened, because I got the governor calling me in California saying, that place you're going to put 15,000 people, 14,000 people, you can put 100 people in because of COVID. And then I tried to move to Vegas. They shut down Vegas and Texas. And so I built a studio. Anyway, long story short, I said, people are trapped at home. Yeah. They're depressed. They're frustrated. I want to make a big difference. How could I do that? Oh, I'll take away the two things they worry about. No time. They don't have to travel and no money. And so I did it for free. We've done it now every year for 5 years. And I didn't do 2 hours. I did 3 days. But I made it chunkable, 3 hours a day, like going to a great movie, only it's changing your life. And instead of new year, new life and setting some goals that by the end of January they've not done, we help you figure out what you want, increase your energy, like we're talking about here, because without that, it doesn't change. Shift your mindset, figure out what you want, figure out what the plan is, figure out what's getting in the way. And over 3 days, and you become part of a community of a million plus people from 193 countries that participate. And it's coming up January 29th through the 31st. And it's at 2 p.m. Eastern, but people do it from all time zones around the world. Again, no charge whatsoever. You can do it from your home, you do it from your office, you might want to do it with someone. If they go to timetorisesummit.com, no charge, get yourself enrolled, and I look forward to serving everyone.
Thank you so much, Tony.
It's been a pleasure.
It. No,
thank you, man.
Thank you.
There we go. Yeah, I mean, that's why I think it's super important and super valuable to break your life up into energy, work, and love. And I've basically done a podcast episode, a solo deep dive podcast episode on almost every topic they discuss, from self-image to goal setting to habits, on my podcast. So if that interests you at all, please check out my podcast called Something for Everybody on all major podcast platforms. Or again, you can text me at my number, which is 201-534-3681. Say you came from the Alex and Tony Robbins stream and ask what episode you want, and I'll directly send it to you. But yeah, I thought that was an awesome conversation. I love seeing that different side of Alex. I don't really love when Tony Robbins just talks about how much he does and how much money he's worth, but eventually he lands the plane, he gets to the point, and that's super cool. But I also think it's really important to understand the people you follow and what level they're at and what level you're at. Make sure you're following people who are only a couple steps ahead of you, because they are truly familiar with the journey that you're currently in. If you're following and only listening to people who are 1,000 steps ahead of you, they don't really remember where you're at starting in the trenches right now from nothing. And so I think Alex's emotional connection goal to, helping 100,000 men get $100,000 in their bank account is amazing. I enjoyed that conversation. I enjoyed seeing that part of Alex Hormozi. So if you enjoyed the stream, please do subscribe or follow wherever you're at, and make sure you do check out my podcast, and I'll see you guys on the next.